Hey guys, it's Mug here again. We're going to follow up on our last lesson, which was an introduction to using your brush. And we looked at brush size, we looked at brush hardness, and then also how to change the color of your brushes right over here with the foreground and background colors that are here on the bottom of your toolbox. We're going to look at a way to create different types of brushes here in Photoshop, specifically scatter brushes and looking at a lot of other brush options. So just to kind of a refresher from last time, at the top of our screen here, when we have our brush tool selected, you can click on this drop down arrow. It's going to let you change the size of your brush and the hardness. You can also choose different types of brushes here in this window. These are by no means the only brushes here. So there are a lot of brush libraries that you can go to. Actually, if you click on this, the gear up here, these are your settings for your brushes. We can click on here and choose some other options. Let's go back here again. You'll see that we have all of these libraries right down here in the bottom half of our flyout window. We have assorted brushes, basic, calligraphic, DP brushes, drop shadow, so on and so forth. We have a lot of different types of brushes in here depending on what your application is. We can also find these brushes if we open up our brushes window. So right now this is just kind of a flyout window, almost like shorthand to find these shortcuts. But at the top of our screen here, next to our brush options, we have our brushes window that can be opened. So I'm going to click on there. It's going to open up our brush and our brush presets window. In here we have way more options than what most people need kind of all at once, and especially as beginners this is going to seem like a lot of information, but I'm going to try to walk you through it and make sure that it's as simple as possible. I'm going to just work straight down this window here to go over how each one of these works. I'm also going to change some of our colors. So we're going to set a foreground and a background color, and we're going to brush right here on the screen in just a second, but we're going to go through these. So when I have my brush set up like normal, and when I mean normal I just mean the default type of brush, just like our last lesson, we picked a foreground color. Last time I think we did yellow and violet, so I'm just going to pick a different type of complementary color scheme here. We're going to do red and kind of a blue-green. And with the default brush, it's going to give us this very simple type of brush stroke. And just to remind you about changing the brush sizes, the shortcut on your keyboard are the bracket keys just to the right of the letter P. And if I click on the one on the left, it changes the size smaller, the one on the right, and it makes it larger. The shortcut X on my keyboard will flip my foreground and background colors. So you'll see here when I hit X, I get a different color in the front. And I can continue brushing here with these. If I keep these colors as my main colors, when I get to this option down here in my brush window that says color dynamics, it's going to base the colors of these brushes on the types of colors I have here. So if you don't want to use these particular ones for the brush you're about to try when we start looking at the scatter brush, you may just want to change them to something that you like. I'm going to clear off my artboard, and the best way to clear off your artboard is to select the entire thing. So to select your entire artboard here, you're going to press Command, or for those of you on a PC, Control, and then the letter A. And what that does here, and we're going to talk more about making selections in our next video, but for the purposes of what we're doing today, we're just going to select this whole canvas and then hit the Delete key on the keyboard. And now we have cleared off our layer. If you hold down Command or Control for the PC users and the letter D as in dog or deselect, you'll deselect that entire selection you have going on there. And again, we'll revisit that here in our next lesson. Let's continue talking about brushes. So Brush tip shape. You'll see here that's our first option, and it's highlighted in blue. That means that that's what's selected here. And I have my whole library that we saw earlier in the other fly down window, as well as anything else that I wanted to open. So if I wanted to open up another library of brushes, I can always click on my brush presets and pick a new brush and go to different libraries, so on and so forth. For today, I'm going to scroll down and we're just going to pick, I think we have one that looks like a leaf. There we go. So we have one that looks like a leaf and it says 74 next to it. So what that means is the size of that brush is 74 pixels. 74 pixels is about an inch. If you remember our video when we talked about opening up a document, I explained how we have 72 pixels per inch on our screens. So these particular leaves are going to be 74 pixels each by default. But we're going to go in and we're going to change a few things here when we get down to shape dynamics, and we're going to choose the size. You can also choose the size here. So if you like this type of brush where it looks like a leaf, but you don't like it that big, well, you can change the size just like that, and you'll see in our preview window, which is right down here, it's going to change the size for us and give us a preview of what it's going to look like. So right now, without changing anything else, if I click and drag on my canvas, because I've set up a different type of brush, you'll see that we have this kind of row of leaves that are all touching each other. I'm going to undo that last step, and this is a keystroke that you're going to want to learn and be very familiar with. Command Z, which is undo. It's a really popular command. Sorry, it's also Control Z for those of you using PCs. It's the same in a lot of other programs like Microsoft and things like that. It'll undo your last step. Okay, again, so back to our window here. So we have our size. I'm going to set that back to about where we were when we started. And for this demonstration, I'm going to space out because our brush is set up as individual leaves. So if I go down here to where it says spacing, I can increase the space between them. And usually for just kind of doing a nice let's say I'm doing a fall background, I would want to space this about this far apart, maybe 115 or so. You don't have to use a very specific number for what we're going to be doing in this demonstration. So then I'm going to just move down. I'm not going to go to every single one of these in this lesson, but I am going to go to Shape Dynamics. Shape Dynamics are going to control how big and at what angle and the actual shape of each one of these leaves is going to appear once we start brushing again. The term jitter, and you're going to see this in each window, stands for or means variation. So this says size jitter, so that means that we're going to be changing the size variation of each one of these leaves. The lower the number, so this is set to 0, that means that we're not going to have any variation. It's always going to be the same size leaf. If I increase this number, you'll see in our preview window down here that we have a variety of sizes. Now we're going to have some large, some small, and if I bring this, the higher I bring this number, so the higher I get to 100%, the larger variety of sizes I'm going to have, which I kind of like. And again, you can set this, if you were trying to create the illusion of space, for instance, you could create a layer of leaves that are larger than a layer that is below it. And we're going to talk more about layers again in some future lessons. So what I'm going to do is, just so I get a nice variety, because I'm going to fill my page here with some leaves, I'm going to set this about 80%. Minimum diameter, so it's asking us, okay, we know that you want to do a variation in size, but if you don't want to do a really small leaf, because the 0% would be very, very small, the minimum diameter, let's say, would be half. And again, our brush was set to about 74, 75. That means that the minimum diameter, the smallest leaf that's going to appear, is going to be about half that size. The next one is going to be angle jitter. And for me, when I'm trying to create a brush that looks random, so again, if we're creating a background here that's going to be like fall leaves that have fallen off of a tree, you're going to want to change the angle jitter. And that means angle variation, because obviously leaves don't fall off trees at in the same position. As they fall, they spin and turn and flip over and all those types of things. So I'm going to increase my angle jitter to 100%. So that means I'm going to get 100% completely random angles of my leaves. The roundness jitter actually changes the perspective at which you're looking at these leaves. So the way we're looking at them now, as if they're flat like on a table, and we are going to look down on them from a flat point of view. But sometimes, as leaves are falling, that angle might change. So maybe you're looking at it from the side. Maybe you're looking at it to where it's almost, you can't perceive it. And so I kind of like this one here. I changed the roundness jitter. Now you don't need to make it 100%. We can, choose kind of wherever we want. And then as we go down, minimum roundness, this has to do with, we can make it super flat. So some of the leaves will be, you'll look at completely from the side. But if you say 50%, that means that there'll be a kind of like a 3/4 view. Okay, we're going to go to a couple more options here before we start brushing. And I know that this video is getting a little bit on the long side, but there's a lot to cover, and there's so many options that we have to choose from with brushes. I want to make sure that we kind of at least go over, a handful of them. I'm going to go down to the next options here, which is scattering, and this is what's going to really make this brush look cool, is when we scatter these out. Now what it does is, even though we're going to brush along this kind of curved path, it's going to let some of the leaves drift away. And the higher you put this number, the more random or scattered it looks, and the lower the number, the more steady it's going to appear and almost linear. I'm going to set this to, somewhere in the ballpark of 500%. You guys can choose, kind of whatever percentage you want, depending on how random you want these leaves to appear. One of the next ones down here says count. So this is how many you're going to get. I prefer to have the count lower. That way I can go back over and I can just add more as I please. I really don't like the brush to make too many at one time. I'd rather slowly add it in. We're going to go to one more here, and that's going to be color dynamics. So we're going to skip a couple. We're going to go down to color dynamics. And what this is, and again, we talked about jitter already. So jitter, it means variation. So between our foreground and background, currently we have green and red chosen. I'm actually going to change these colors before we brush. But the higher this number, the more it's going to give you a balance of the two colors you've chosen for your foreground and background. If you have it at 0, that means all of your leaves are going to be the color of your foreground. So if I was going to brush right now, and I'll show you an example, I'll just do it real quick. You'll see I'm brushing some leaves in here, and they are all green. I'm going to undo that by Command or Control Z. And you can see that if I increase that number to 100, I get green and red, and the entire gamut between. I'm going to undo that as well. And we're just going to go over a couple more options here, and then we're going to get filling this page up. We also have hue jitter, which is why when I set this to 100, or sorry, when I set it to 0, even though it's doing all green, you can see that it's giving me slightly different variations of green, or my blue-green. And the higher I change this number to, the bigger variation of green or blue-green I'm going to get. So you'll see here it's at 48%. I've got some bright blue in here, I've got some really dark lime green, and I've got something in between. I'm going to set that to, let's say, about 20% or something. Saturation jitter, this has to do with how bright the colors are. I can set that a little bit to get some variation. Brightness, I'm going to leave the brightness there, and purity, I'm also going to leave that alone. So anyway, before we finish this video here, I'm just going to pick some fall colors, and I'm going to pick, let's see, we'll do an orange, and I'm going to pick, let's pick a green here, kind of an olive green. And I'm going to darken this orange up a little bit, sorry. So I'm going to get us kind of a red-orange. No, those are kind of fall colors, and again, we could also go over this many times. So I can go over it once with these colors, and then if I want to try some others, I can do that as well. So just before we wrap up this video, let's go. Let's brush some leaves onto our canvas here. And you'll see here, I'm kind of just going around, and I'm clicking and dragging just once. So I haven't lifted up my mouse yet, and I'm just going through. Now, these look kind of small to me, so what I'm going to do is just go back into my brush tip shape in my brush window here, and I'm going to increase my size. I'm going to double it. So now I'm going to get leaves that are twice the size. My other settings are still the same, so as I go through here, I'm still getting my orange, a lot of yellow. And you know what, now that I think about it, my color dynamics, I don't have any jitter. That's why I'm not getting any green. So if I increase this to 100%, now I'm going to get more of a balance between orange and green, and it's going to make this look a lot more like fall colors. Okay, so what I would like you guys to do is make your own fall background. You can continue, and you can change these sizes to then make the leaves look like they're getting closer and closer. So I'm going to double it again. So I'm going to go up to about 300 and go here. And again, there are some other options that we haven't gone over yet, such as blur effects and ways to make it look like these are actually getting closer. And I just want you guys to kind of get used to changing some of the settings on your brushes. And I'm just going to put a little bit more in here, and then I'm going to go one more time, and I'm going to double these again up to 600. Let's see, I can type it in as well. And I can also change my scattering, bring that down so it's not nearly as scattered about as they get bigger. And so you'll see now I'm starting to fill my page with leaves. Okay, well, that's our lesson on our brush window and looking at some of our brush options. I hope you take the time to go in and make your own and look at different types of brush tip shapes, colors, and we will do a more advanced demo on more brushes later. Thanks for watching.